Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Susan, and on behalf of MH Service, I would like to welcome you and thank you all for joining us today. At MH Service, we work closely with leading technology providers to bring innovative solutions to the digital investigations community. Today, we are pleased to be joined by our good partner, Exterro, for an insightful session on how the latest capabilities of FTK 8.3 can help investigation teams process evidence faster, reduce manual review, and get to answers sooner. We are pleased to have representatives from both Exterro and MA Service joining us today. Representing Exterro, we have Christine Hall. She's the International Technical Engineer. Christine will be leading today's session and sharing her expertise with us. Representing MH Service, we are also joined by our COO, Muhammad Awadallah, who will deliver the closing remarks at the end of the webinar. Following the presentation, we will move into a live Q&A session, so we encourage you to submit your questions throughout the webinar, and we will answer them at the end. Thank you once again for joining us today. Without further ado, I would now like to hand over to Christine. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for coming today to join us on this webinar. So I am a solution engineer here for Exterro, but I have 20 years of digital forensic experience as a senior digital forensic investigator doing mobiles and computer investigation, as well as running a number of UK labs. Today, we're going to talk about Exterro and our FTK range. But before we go into that, just to give you an overview of Exterro, in addition to our forensic software, we also have a number of products for our data privacy, security governance, and e-discovery software. So if this is something that you're interested in, please reach out to us and we can give you a further demo on these products. Today's webinar is going to focus on our FTK family. So we have our two main end-to-end forensic solutions, which is our FTK Central and our FTK Standalone. We also have our FTK Imager product, which is quite popular and a lot of people have used, and I'll go into the details on this webinar on the difference between FTK Imager and FTK Pro. And then our newer range of products is those that use our Armor technology, which is our AI innovation that we've added to our products. We have our Armor FTK Central and we have our Armor OP, which is our triage tool. We also have added in additional AI capability into our FTK 8.3 that you'll see later on in this webinar. So let's start with an overview of Armor FTK Central. Now this is aimed at our corporate customers. This utilizes This utilizes our agents on endpoints to allow you to interrogate those devices before you carry out a collection. So this is one way in which you can save time on collecting data by determining which machines you may need to collect from before collecting that data, so reducing the time. For example, in this instance, I have used the AI interface. Now, this AI interface can be integrated with your own MCPs and your own models. It is designed to work with the AI that you already have. And in this instance, what I've done is I've asked it to look into a particular endpoint for malicious software. And I've asked it to look through a particular a Java file. Now you can see here that when the AI runs, it will show you the AI's thinking. So you've got an audit trail and an audit track of what's being carried out. And then you get your answer. So here you can see how I can save time in a malware investigation because it's not only identified that piece of malware, it tells me what that malware intended to do and has looked for any artifacts on the endpoint to indicate if that malware has been run. So this can allow me to make a decision. Does that device need isolation? Do I want to do something like data remediation? Or do I not need to do anything at all because nothing further needs doing? So I can make those choices before I've even collected any data. So it's very quick and easy to make those decisions. Like I said, this is aimed at our corporate customers, whereas our other product, our Armor OP, our triage tool, is designed for a wide range of our customers. So I'll show you that as part of a live demo. So if I switch to my machine, our Armor OP tool is designed to be run from either a USB stick or it can be placed on a machine. So you'll get these self-contained files. Whether you run it from a USB stick or whether you place this folder on your machine, it doesn't require any installation. It will then allow you to bring up this interface that runs in a web browser. So we utilize Mozilla Firefox for this. As I've said, everything is contained, so no additional um, files need to be installed for the stuff that I'm going to show you now. There is one additional feature that does require some extras, and I'll show you that at the end. But for now, this triage tool will allow you to either run it from a USB stick on a live machine, and then you can interrogate the devices, either the drives that are connected, or you can connect a device to it, a USB stick, any sort of external device, and you can interrogate that device. Or you can ingest a image file or a mobile extraction that has already been extracted, and then utilize Armor OP to look through that data. The idea of this is to allow you to get a quick look at these devices, whether it's live or whether it's an image file. So in this example, I'm going to show you a computer device that I've added in earlier. When it comes to a device that's got an operating system or has got that has got chat, email, or browser artifacts on it, you can carry out additional parsing within this tool. So you can parse the chat messages, the emails, the internet history. You can even parse the memory of those live devices. You will see in this interface, the idea is to quickly allow you to make decisions on how to move forward with these devices. So I can see down the side here, I've got a list of folders. These are folders that quickly tell me what is in those locations, so I can quickly navigate to them and take a look at that data. They are high priority folders, so they tend to be user created ones, or folders that have the majority of your data in to allow you quick access. But you can still have this file explorer view, so you can make your own decisions as an analyst. For example, I used to do a lot of on-site work where I'd go out to locations, whether it's suspect houses or companies, to carry out triage work to decide whether or not I want to seize the device, whether that device needs imaging, or even if it belongs to one of my suspects. Quite often, I might go into a shared accommodation, and the idea is of these devices, which can be hundreds. When you go into someone's houses, whether it's USB sticks, mobile phones, smart devices like TVs, etc., routers, you can come across quite a large number of digital devices that might need seizing or bringing into the lab. This allows you to make decisions on location as to if those devices even need to make it into the lab in the first instance, so you can reduce the amount of pressure on your digital forensic labs. So let's say I am in someone's house and it's a shared accommodation, and I'm trying to identify whether this machine belongs to Karen. Well, I can see she's a user account on this device, so she's likely to be a user. Do I want to now image this device? Do I want to seize it? Or if she wasn't present, if it was someone called Andy, for example, and there's no indication that Andy uses this device, maybe we make a decision not to seize it so we don't deprive a roommate or another household member of their devices for the duration of the investigation. So you can see how we can use Armor OP to make those decisions. The same with things like our date settings. I can quickly see anything that's been created within the last 90 days. So I can narrow down my data set for around the time of the incident to determine if this device has even been used in the last 12 months, etc. Is it an old device that has no longer been used? And I can quickly see that timeline. So I can see quite quickly where the majority of data has been utilized, and I can use that as a filter to just concentrate on that data and decide if it's something I want to look into. We also have the ability to do emails. So again, as I mentioned, we can parse out emails. So it will identify where you've got email containers within your data set, and you can parse those out so that you can view those emails. So we can see here, I have a number of emails present. I can view the contents of the email, and I can review any attachments here. I can also quickly identify all the email addresses that have been parsed out as part of the email analysis. So again, similar to identifying user accounts and who the device belongs to, maybe I want to identify even if there is an email address on here relevant to my investigation. So I'm looking for this particular person. I can see their email address is present, and I can quickly see those emails belonging to that person here. So again, it helps me decide, do I want to triage this device? Do I want to seize it? Or maybe this is all I needed from that device. So instead of imaging a 2 terabyte device or a whole mailbox, I've identified the 13 emails that are relevant to my investigation. I can select them from here, and then I can export out those emails either as native files, so as the emails themselves, or I can create myself a forensic image file. And you can see how much quicker and how much data has been reduced from imaging a full 2 terabyte physical drive to just getting those emails that I have quickly identified as part of my triage. And the same with browser artifacts. Once you've parsed those browsers, so we can see parse the browser history here, I can quickly see things like what searches has been carried out, what downloads have been conducted. Do I now want to seize the whole device? Do I now feel that this is part of my investigation and I want to take that with me? So you can see there's a lot of choices that can be made from the information that we can quickly see within Armor OP. And I'll just give you some indication. So I ran this on my local machine, which doesn't utilize GPU. So it is just using the CPU of my device for this AI features. And you can see some of the times it's taken for me to run these things like keyword searches, indexing, and facial features that I'll show you in a second. So you can see how quickly this AI can run and these features can run when you're on site to help you get to that data much quicker. If I take a look at another data set that's quite heavy in multimedia, I'll show you some of the additional functionality we have. Now, these features are quite useful on site and in the lab to give you additional analysis features in the lab. Now, one of the things that we do have with Armor OP is it can integrate with FTK Central, so you can move the data between the two. So you can start your investigation off in here and then move it into FTK Central to continue if that's something you would like to do. But the additional features that we have that you might find useful to your investigation, excuse me, is things like our media review. So if we take a look at our media, I can see this in thumbnail view or I can see in list view. I can do things like if I have ran various analysis that you can see here, I can do things like a CSAM check. So one of my options that I have within Armor OP is I can add in my hash sets here. I can add my hash sets in here, and then I can run that across my data set. So where I do have CSAM hits, which I can support by either CADE or Project Vic, it will automatically grade those. So if we select those, you'll see the categorization here, and I'll be able to see those hashes that have had a hit for illegal material quite quickly in here. If we go back to our thumbnails, I can also run analysis for things like quick media scan to identify things like weapons and drugs. I can detect faces. I can do captions, which gives me a short description of the picture that I'm looking at. We can transcribe, we can run OCR, we can do translation and summarization. There's quite a lot of great features in here that will help me with both document review and media review. So let's take a look at some of those. Let's first look at our EXIF hit. So once I've run that EXIF analysis, I can now look at my data that I've got, location data. So I can say, show me all those files that have been taken in this location, and I can take a look at them. Where I have ran that caption processing, I can see a short description of what that picture is as well. If we remove this filter, we can do the same for things like our camera devices. Bear with me 1 second, my machine is frozen. We can do the same with camera devices, things like the model. So I can quickly look at things like iPhone devices. I can quickly look at things like iPhone devices and things like cameras. Excuse me while I just relog in. And you'll find that the AI for this doesn't take very long either, and it utilizes it utilizes the standalone AI functionality so that you don't need to connect to any internet or any external model. So it's all on-prem. It's all on-prem AI. Apologies for this, some technical issues with the connection. Bear with me a second while I just change the connection. Apologies for that. So as I was saying, you can change to cameras. So we can do things like look at devices that we might have first generation images on, or that most likely will belong to the suspect potentially. So again, we can narrow down that data set. Now, with the similar faces features, what it does is it goes through our images and we can do things like identify people. So we can see here, this person appears the most across my data set, and I can apply that as a filter and see all the pictures that this person appears in. So it's quite a quick way to identify victims or suspect across my devices. We can also do things like image detection. So I can quite quickly see things like weapons or drugs within my data set here. And I can add those in. And again, we have the ability that within our data set, we can do things like with the OCR searching, it allows me to do searches. For example, if I'm looking for a license plate, I can type that license plate into here and you'll see that I'll identify it. So you can see from here, not only have I found the car with the license plate, I've got a false positive hits. And that's because I have set the similarity to 40%. If I increase this, the more I increase it, the more accurate the results get. So now I should only have the license plate. Oh, apologies. I'll have the license plate comes up. So you can see with the similarity search, I can change the accuracy of the data that comes up. There we go. So there you go. So increase the accuracy with the correct license plate. You'll then see that I'll get that single device come up here. So it's a great way to interrogate our data, to look for things like license plates or even documents when you do document analysis. Now, if we look at our multimedia, this is where we have some additional functionality with our video files. So here with our video files, you'll see that we will get a visual transcript of each of the frames. And where you have audio within the video file, we can do transcripts as well. Now, I have set this transcript on to transcribe the audio in its native language, which is Spanish, but you do have the option to translate to English. So I could have had this translated to English text here. And again, on this one, you can see the visuals. So you can see the breakdown of the description of the videos within the frames itself. Then if I'm doing document review, so I can quite easily, when I'm doing this triage, if I want to look at all the documents, I can switch to my data type here and say, well, show me all the documents. Let's just remove these filters, as these are no longer required. So I can quite easily see my documents here. And again, if I have a document that's in a non-English language, I can have it translated to English. I can also summarize. So if I've got chat messages or emails and I want a summarization of those chat messages, I can do that again here. So you'll see there's lots of functionality within Armor OP that will allow you to quickly review the data that you have and make decisions whether it's on site. Do you want to image the full device? Do you want to carry out any further checks? Or do you want to do a filtered collection of the data? If you're in the lab, it might help you identify where you might have critical data or where to prioritize that device within your lab's workflow, whether it's a high priority device or it can be low priority. So it can help you manage your lab resources. Then we have our next product range, which is our FTK Standalone and FTK Central. Now, this is our end-to-end forensic software, and there are slight differences between the two. Now, in terms of functionality, so the stuff that I'll show you in the live demo, that is the same across them both. Where there is a big difference between the two is the collaborative working approach. Standalone is designed to be installed on a single workstation, so it utilizes your local resources to process those cases. Now, for a lot of our customers, this can cause a bottleneck. So if you're a large lab, you don't want to utilize your machine to process cases at the same time you're analysis and carrying out analysis, because it may create a bottleneck in your investigation. And this is where FTK Central is different. It also, with Standalone, is designed for individual investigations, so not a collaborative approach. So it will be one investigator working on one case at a time. But FTK Standalone is incredibly cheap compared to other standalone forensic tools on the market. So if you have a small budget or a small lab, it may be a product that you wish to consider. And you can also add on network resources. So let's just say you're a lab with 3 investigators and you decide to go down the standalone route. You can have a hash set that is shared between those standalone users, or an AI server that's shared between those standalone users. So there are some network resources you can share with standalone, but the actual investigation work is designed to be done in isolation. Whereas FTK Central is more of a collaborative approach. Now, this is the big difference between the two. The components get moved to the network. This then allows you to do things like scalable processing. So if you're a lab where some days you might get 4 terabytes of data and the next day you might get 40 terabytes, and you want to be able to adjust quickly to be able to meet the demand, FTK Central gives you the back-end infrastructure to do that scalable processing. You can increase the distributed processing engines as you need them. This environment can be set up fully on-prem, so it can be physically in your environment with your full control. If you have private cloud, you can utilize your private cloud environment, and this will allow you to do things like auto scaling. So you can spin up those VMs for processing engines as you need them and turn them off to save resources when you don't. You can easily scale up things like storage space, or you can utilize different tiers of storage depending on the stage of your investigation. That fast, quick, more expensive storage for live cases, and then that cold storage for archived cases. If you then want to bring in that collaborative approach, this is where we have those 2 interfaces that I'll show you in the live demo. We have our core view, which is the traditional FTK interface that most of you will be familiar with if you're used to FTK. And we have our new smart view, which only utilizes a web browser. So if you want to bring officers into your investigation, you might have an increase of mobile submissions, for example, an increase of fraud, drugs, organized crime investigations. Those investigations where having the officer and the investigators involved will help speed up those investigations, because they understand things like slang terms, they recognize the people involved, and it makes sense to have them involved in the investigation, but they don't have the same digital forensic skills as your digital forensic team. So you want an interface that is clearer and easier for them to use. That's where the Smart View interface comes in. And it helps with things like legal review. Maybe you need to bring in a legal team to look for legal privilege, or you might want to bring in a specialist like a forensic accountant. They can access the environment from just a web browser, so no additional hardware needs. And again, you can add those same components onto your network. If you want to bring in things like translation, a hash server, the AI server, you can add them into the network. Now, this is where FTK Central is different from Standalone, because if you wanted to bring in the remote collection capability, this is where you'll need FTK Central. And this allows you to collect from both on-prem on-network and off-network collections, as well as those cloud collections. Now, this is where I find that FTK Central has value for money, because FTK Central allows you to have one solution in your organization, but be used by different departments for different reasons. So it might be that your digital forensic unit is utilizing FTK Central for digital forensic investigations. But if you have a department within your organization that looks after internal investigations or internal reviews, they can also utilize FTK Central and add on the components they need to be able to do those remote collections. So let's take a look at FTK 8.3 now. So as I mentioned, 8.3 is fairly new. We have a lot of features from we have a lot of features from our FTK 8 range that are still present, but 8.3 has a significant update to our AI capability. Now, as I mentioned before, we have two interfaces in FTK 8. So you have the core view interface. So whether you decide you want to go to 8.2 or 8.3, this feature is in both versions. We have our core view interface. So this is what would be familiar to you if you've used FTK in the past. Our new interface is that requires the web browser. Now, you don't need to have anything installed to be able to utilize this. You just need access to the web server and a web browser, which means your reviewers don't need to worry about upgrading their laptops, their hardware, or anything like that. And you can bring those reviewers into the environment. You can then utilize things like our role permissions. And as you can see that this particular account I'm logged into doesn't have those permissions. So if I log in as my admin account, you can see it in my role permissions here. I can create my users. I can utilize Active Directory to import those users in. And I have a number of role permissions that I can activate. So I can control not only who has access to what cases, but what they have access to within the environment itself. And you can see now in 8.3, when I talk about the AI, some of the questions that we have from our customers is they are happy with the AI features like summarization and image detection. But where we do the prompt-based searching, they needs to be more, they need to look internally as to what is allowed in their investigation. So they want to be able to turn off certain parts of the AI. And we took that feedback on board and we added that in. So you can utilize those AI features that I'm going to show you later on, like image recognition, without having to turn on the MCP, which is the prompt-based searching. So all of those can be adjusted here in the role-based permissions. So let me show you some of my favorite features of FTK. So if we go into one of my computer cases that I've got, you will see here that we have a dashboard, and this dashboard can be customized so that you can use it to highlight things like geolocation or whether there's any languages on your machine that might require translation or additional resources. And then when you go into your case, the reason why the Smart View is so easy for our non-technical users is because it's this filter-based type of interface. You don't have to worry whether or not your user knows the difference between file extensions and file signatures, or even to identify whether or not you'll find user-created folders in the DCM folder and how to navigate to that. Those users don't have to worry about those types of forensic artifacts. If they want to see emails, they can go to the email filter. If they want to see their documents in a case, they can go to the documents filter here. And you can stack filters. So do you want to see all documents that are deleted? You can just stack those filters on easily. Do you want to see all documents that might be encrypted? Again, it's just adding those filters on that can be stacked. And the whole interface is customizable. You can use these filters along the top to narrow down your data set, and you can change how the data looks. So we have selected for you a number of fields that we think is relevant. But if you want to add or remove anything, that can be done nice and easily from within the interface by just customizing which fields can be seen here in this interface. So we'll talk about some of our favorite features. The first one is how quickly we can narrow down data set using one of my features that I like called Smart Grid. So if we take emails, for example, and you can do this with emails, chats, documents, with any artifact type really. But if we take emails, you can see in this data set, I have a large amount of emails. If I switch that to our Smart Grid interface, I can now see how those emails are broken down into groups. I can see who has sent the most amount of emails, who has received the most amount of emails, what date those emails were sent on, etc. And then I can use this to build out a filter using what I know about the investigation. So let's say, for example, I'm dealing with a malicious email communication. I know that email was sent from an email address containing the name Justin. So let's do a search for Justin. And I can see there's 3. So let's add those and add those as a filter. You can now see that all my numbers have updated because now SmartGrid is showing me the breakdown of data of just the emails from those 3 email addresses. Now I know my email also had an attachment, so I only want to include emails that have an attachment. And again, I have narrowed down that data set. But this is not the best view for emails because I can't see the actual contents. So I want to switch back to my list view. And now in this list view, you can see how quickly SmartGrid narrowed down those thousands and thousands of emails to just the potential 24 that might be relevant to my investigation. And that's what I can concentrate on the first part of my investigation. So now in this list view, I can open up the viewer. I can take a look at the email. I can take a look at the info about the email itself. Where is it located on the device? Any timestamp properties that the email might have, any metadata, etc. If I select any of the timestamps within FTK, I also get a mini timeline. So I can quickly see what's been happening before and after that timestamp that I've selected that might be relevant to my investigation, especially if you want to know where something has come from. Maybe you're looking at a picture and you select the creation date, and you can quickly see that 2 seconds before the picture was created, someone had done a Google search. So it can give you some sort of provenance as to how that data got on the device. We can also, when it comes to emails, I'm also not just interested in the email, but also the attachment itself. So I can quickly see any attachments on the emails and view those in FTK itself. The inbuilt viewer doesn't require you to install any third-party tools. If you want to look at documents, emails, pictures, videos, it's all contained within the viewer. If, for whatever reason, the browser you're using doesn't support that file type, we include Desktop Viewer, which will then open a new tab which utilizes VLC in the background so that you can view those documents in a VLC browser instead. But the majority of document types are supported by the browser, and you can view them within this environment itself. We can also, for emails, see things like threading. So if I do have any emails that have been sent to multiple people, and I come across any of those, I will be able to see them here again. So email analysis, document analysis, even chat views, using SmartView to narrow down that data, and then utilizing the viewers itself to interrogate that data even further can help me complete my investigations much quicker. In addition to the SmartGrid, we also have another feature called entity management. And this is great when it comes to mobile phones. So one of the great things about FTK Central is not narrowed down to just computer data. If you are using other tools to collect mobile phone data and you have raw extractions, or you have UFD files, UFDR files, extended XMLs, your key list, your plist and keychain files, and you want to bring that into FTK, you can bring that mobile data in here. So you can look at your mobile data, your computer data, your cloud collected data, all in one location. So you don't have to worry about having siloed investigations, having to use 3 different tools because you extracted the data with 3 different tools. There is a long list of files, data types that we support. You want to bring in a virtual hard drive, a virtual machine, a zip file, you can bring those into. And then you can look at it all within FTK. And this allows me to do things like pattern analysis. And this is where entity management is great for mobile phones, because we know with mobile phones that people have multiple communication apps and they'll have different usernames for those applications. And we want to see all that communication together in one place. So what entity management does is it will go through your data set and it will identify things like email addresses and telephone numbers. And it will say this email address that's being used for Apple is also being used by Kik Messenger. So we're going to group these 2 accounts together for you to create an entity. And this mobile number that you're utilizing for your Apple ID is also being used for WhatsApp. So we're also going to put these 2 together. Now, FTK will automatically match up email addresses and telephone numbers. But if you're going through your data set and you identify 2 entities that you know are the same, you can manually merge them. So between what you manually merge and what FTK automatically merges for you, you can start to create your entities. So I can quickly see here all the accounts that belong to Steph, and I can quickly see here all the accounts that belong to Lena. And then if I go into these entities, I can add things like their photographs, their telephone numbers, any other account details that I have for them, any additional information that I would like to add to these entities. And you can see here, I can do this for all my entities of note, add as much or as little as I want to those entity accounts. When I go into those entities, I can quickly see all the accounts that will be associated to them. And then visually, I can see how the communication looks. Now I can narrow this down. So let's just say here, because it's a bit busy, I just want to see the top 5 people that have been communicated to. And I can see that nice and easy here. I can go into it and see how that communication is broken down across apps. Maybe I don't know who I want to look into. Maybe instead I just want to search by application. So I know that the incident took place on Kick Messenger. So only show me who's been communicated with on that application. And I can do the same with things like dates. Maybe I want to look at 30 days before and after an incident took place. Maybe I want to look at before and after a murder took place, for example, to see what communication took place. I can use that to narrow down whose communication I should focus on. And when I identify that communication, I can add it as a filter. So I can apply this as a filter. So again, I can move the data around FTK so I can look at it in the best display for what I want to look at. And I've now narrowed down my data from my original messages for all my communication. So here I had, let me just open that a bit. I had around 800 chat conversations. I have now narrowed it down to the 265 that belong to those 3 people that I've selected, whether it's messages or calls. I have narrowed it down to those 3 individuals of potential relevance to my case. And now I can look through their chat messages. I can bookmark individual messages or the whole chat thread. So I don't have to worry about exporting out thousands and thousands of messages if it's just one that's relevant to my investigation. I can do searches within here. I can narrow down by data sets. Now, it might be that I also want to narrow down my data a little bit further. So I can take those 265 messages that I've located from the entity management and drop that back into SmartGrid and see what the patterns are now with just this data set. And I can see, the most amount of messages were sent on this day. So maybe now I want to narrow down that data to just focus on the day the most amount of messages were sent on. So you can see there's a lot of features within our SmartView interface that's designed to narrow down big data sets quickly. Now let's go on to some of the new 8.3 features. Now, one of the new features that I like from our 8.3 update is we now have the ability to look at databases within FTK. So previously, if I came across a database file, I would have to take it out and put it into a third-party tool. Whereas now within FTK, I can search for those database files and I can open them up into our viewer. So if I select one that I identified earlier, so we can speed this up. So I have an SMS database here. I can open it up in my data browser. So if I need to do things like mobile phone database validation, so I want to double check that the chat messages that FTK has pulled out are actually in that database, I can now do that within FTK itself. Within here, I can run my own queries. Apologies. I can run my own queries within here, and I can save those queries to speed up time next time. So if I wanted to run my query, just wait for my machine to catch up, I can load that in from a template and then run those queries over my messages. Apologies, my demo environment's running a little bit slow. In addition to the queries, because I can show you this in another way, in addition to be able to run in my own queries, we now have the AI functionality that has now been added in. This allows me to run natural queries instead. So I'll show you that from here. So this natural language query allows me to, in addition to running my own SQL queries within FTK, if I didn't know how to write those queries or a non-technical user and I wanted to interrogate the database, I could just write them in plain text. So here I've asked to show all records containing a particular keyword. So in this instance, Orion. Once I click generate, the AI will then generate my SQL query for me, which then can be saved. So the next time I run it, I can then have my template. So the next time, if I want to run a different keyword search, I know I just have to change the word Orion for whatever keyword I want to run next, like drugs or anything else. So it can speed up the use of the SQL queries, and it also opens up this feature to both technical and non-technical users. So you can see here my results are at the bottom, and you can obviously can make these queries as complicated or as simple as you like with the query builder. The other functionality that's been added to 8.3 is this FTK Assist. Now, these do utilize the AI server. Now, for this feature, you will need to consider the hardware requirements because this does need to utilize GPU for the AI resources. But what it does give you is the ability to run prompts and queries within the data set itself. So here, this is what my FTK Assist looks like. I ask a question. So I'm asking, are there any emails relating to Novatech? So I'll place my question here, and then the AI starts to get to work. Now, this is where we've put in the audit trail because we want you to be able to see how the AI comes to those decision making. So you can see the type of query it runs, how it's interpreted your prompt, and then you can export this out into an audit log for your notes. Then I get my results. So here I can see what has been highlighted from that query and also the source of where that data has come from. And then I can check and verify that data myself to see if it's relevant to my investigation. If I need to either label or filter that data, that can easily be done from here, where it will show me all the sources that has been used to give me this answer. And then I can go into that data set myself, include it for the report, or verify that data myself manually. Now, before I end, I just want to go over FTK Imager Pro because there is a difference between our FTK Free Imager and our Imager Pro. And that's the additional support that we have put in for encryption and for iOS collections. So we allow you to collect from Apple devices. You can now conduct an iOS advanced logical collection in Imager Pro. So if this is a functionality you would like to add, then you can add this with Imager Pro to do the collection and then bring that mobile data into FTK to use the features that I've already showed you, like entity management and that filter for chat messages, etc. And you'll see here, once it's connected to the device, you'll then be able to do the collection and see the data of the iPhone itself. Now, let me quickly show you the encryption in Imager Pro. So this is an additional feature that we get in Pro, is that you can now bring in encrypted data or look at encrypted devices. So whether it's a connected BitLocker device or a BitLocker image that you've already taken and you want to look at that data, you now get the ability to bring in the encrypted data and decrypt it within FTK Imager Pro. So as long as I've got the password or the recovery key, whatever it is I need, I can now look at that BitLocker data. So this can be a connected device, so a connected suspect device that you have connected. You've got the recovery key and you want to make decisions before you decide to image it, or it can be an image file that you would like to interrogate. So here I can see my data. Now, rather than imaging a 2 terabyte or 4 terabyte drive, I can quickly see here that I'm only interested in documents, for example. So I can create myself a custom image file to only look for PDF documents. I can create that custom image, which I've done earlier. So now, instead of collecting a large 4 terabyte drive, I've instead just collected those PDF files. So you can see I have narrowed down my data set at collection to just collect those documents without having to image that full drive at the start. So you'll see across our FTK range, I can do filtered collections, so I can narrow down our data at the start. You can do filtered collections remotely with FTK Central, or you can do it with Imager Pro, whether it's encrypted or decrypted, you can do your custom image files. There are our added AI functionality that we have with Armor OP to allow you to triage on site to reduce the amount of devices that you're bringing into the lab. And you have a number of functionality within FTK itself to help speed up that review by bringing in that collaborative approach. Now, I'll see if there's any questions. So bear with me a second while I just change.
Yes, Christine, thank you so much for the information, the shared information, valuable information. Thank you for joining today, everyone. There is a couple of questions here. Let me read the first one. Does the EI feature require an internet connection or is it's offline?
It's completely offline. So we know that our customers are mainly security focused, so government officials, police forces, etc. So we always maintain our on-prem environment for FTK. So the AI server is completely offline for the stuff that I showed you in FTK 8.3, the FTK Assist. The Armor OP is completely on-prem and doesn't require internet connection. The only thing that requires not necessarily internet connection, but a cloud environment is the very first AI feature that I showed you, which is the one aimed at corporate customers to do agent collections. That is a hosted environment. All the rest of the AI doesn't require any internet at all. It's completely on-prem. We don't use your data, we don't learn from it, and there's no need for it to leave your premises.
Okay, thank you so much. The next question, you mentioned Armor Central, Armor OP. Are they two different products? Could you please explain?
Of course. So Armor is the name that we give to our AI initiative. So all of our AI features are called Armor in some way, and that's the overall umbrella of the AI. The Armor OP is the standalone triage product. It's a product within its own right. That has AI capability within the tool. You can run it from a USB stick or you can run it from your machine, and it's self-contained. That's the triage tool that I showed you at the earlier start of the webinar. FTK Central Armor, there's two parts. The part that's built into FTK is the FTK Assist, the natural language within the SQL browser to be able to look at that data to do SQL queries. Also things like image recognition and summarization within FTK. Now, the Armor in FTK, which is both in Standalone and FTK Central, there is no additional licensing cost. It all comes down to hardware, the AI hardware that you have. And if you want any more information, please reach out to us and we'll send you the documentation. The Armor for FTK Central, which is the endpoint collection, that utilizes your own AI server, your own MCP. And that does have additional cost in terms of the endpoint, the cost of the endpoints. So there's three different types of Armor within FTK. We have the first one I showed, which is aimed at corporations. That's Armor FTK Central, and that's the endpoint collections where you can do investigations without having to collect the data first. Then we have Armor within FTK, which is in both Standalone and Central, and that's your features like FTK Assist, your image analysis, your image object recognition, and your summarization. And then we have the Standalone Armor OP product, which is for triaging both in the lab and on site.
Thank you so much. Another related question. Armor supporting the mobile data as well?
We do. So when it comes to mobile data, there's two types of support we have. If you would like to collect iOS data as an advanced logical, you can use Imager Pro or FTK Central's remote collection to collect that mobile data. If you are using other tools out there and you are collecting data in a format of UFD, UFDR, extended XMLs, plist or keychains or .bin files, we can ingest that raw data or that decoded data into FTK and parse it straight into the review platform. So collection is Apple devices only. Ingestion is any of those formats that I've mentioned, and you can bring that mobile data in.
Oxygen format is also supported?
So for Oxygen, it's a .bin file. The Oxygen case file is not supported because it's proprietary to Oxygen. But if you extract a .bin file, we can ingest that data.
Clear. How is the licensing model? It's per machine or per user?
So with Armor OP, it's per a machine. So it's per a license, whether it's a USB stick or an individual machine, the license is tied to that individual instance. So it can be shared across multiple users. When it comes to FTK Central, it's concurrent users. So FTK Standalone is per a workstation. So one standalone, one license, one user. FTK Central is concurrent users. So if you have a team of 30 users, 30 staff, and they work shifts, so you only have 10 users at a time, then you would only need 10 licenses because that's how many people you have using FTK Central at the time. If you do hot desking or you have a large organization, you want to have you want to have the number of users that utilize the machine at the same time. So it's concurrent users.
Okay. How will we feed the update to the EI, the offline EI system? Is there a certain repository will be assigned for the customer?
So with all our updates for all of FTK that's done offline, you will get patch updates. So if we do update the AI modules over time, there will be a patch on our website that you can download and patch the device, or you can use our professional services team that will do the updates for you. They'll be in the forms of hot fixes and service packs to do those updates.
Okay. The next question, if I have an image of a drive and I'm only able to view hex values because of the data is not parsed or curved, can this AI model be used to automatically use the hex values to convert them to a viewable files or artifacts?
I will double check this. To my knowledge, the answer is currently no. But what we do take is we take a lot of feedback from our customers. So I'll raise this with the development team and put it in as a feature request to see how the AI can help us with in terms of rebuilding things like RAIDs or drives where it hasn't been parsed correctly. So I'll pass this on to the development team.
Does the system support Arabic?
Yes, it does. We have a number of languages that we support in various parts of FTK. When it comes to the translation, we can send you a list of all the languages that we support. Now, there are two parts to this. If you utilize the RWS translation, you have a number of language pairs that you can utilize. For example, you might want to translate from Arabic to English or French to Arabic. You have language pairs. When it comes to the AI translation and the AI prompting, we can read data from multiple languages, but the prompts and the responses will be in English currently.
Okay. The next question, someone is asking what's the difference between the FTK Lab and FTK Central, and can we integrate the FTK with other tools?
So, to answer to both of those questions is FTK Lab is what prior to 8.3, we used to have FTK Lab, FTK Enterprise, FTK Central. So if you are previous FTK users, you'll be familiar with those terms. We have streamlined our product range. It is now just FTK Central or FTK Standalone. And the differences between them, as I mentioned, is the infrastructure and the remote collection. Now, what used to be the old FTK Lab is now FTK Central without remote collections. So if you have no need to do remote collections, then the FTK Central you have will be very similar to what you used to have as Lab, but you get those two interfaces. So if you haven't yet upgraded to 8, you will benefit from having the core view and the smart view. If you had the old FTK Enterprise, that's now FTK Central with remote collections. So the functionality and the features are still there. The names have just changed to make it easier for our customers. And regarding with integration, we absolutely encourage integration with other tools because we want to be an open forensic software. And this is where we utilize those open APIs. So we have some out of the box integration with tools like Griffy and Semantics 21 and Splunk, or you can have customized integration. Either you can script it yourself using the APIs, or you can contact our professional services team that will help you with the scripting for you to integrate with a number of other forensic software and other tools like case management systems.
Thank you so much. The next question, can we export FTK case to another system and view it there?
So the case file itself is tied to within FTK Central. So you wouldn't be able to export the whole case. But because we want to have this open approach to forensics, we provide you a number of different export options. So for example, Let's say that your budget or your lab didn't utilize an FTK Central solution, so you didn't have that collaborative approach, so you went down the standalone route, but you wanted to be able to share data with somebody outside of your organization without having to export thousands of files. You can create a portable case, and it allows you to give that case data in a streamline portable version of FTK to another user, and they don't need a license. So we have portable cases. You can also export as forensic image files, so you can create AD1s of the data. You can export load files. You can export reports as PDF and HTMLs. And there's a number of different export options in FTK that allows you to share the data with other tools, just not the case file itself, because that's tied to the SQL database.
Okay. FTK Imager is one-time purchase or an annual subscription?
It's an annual subscription, so it's an annual license.
Okay. The Mac OS is supported or only iOS? Which one is covered?
So for collections, only iOS, so not MacBook. So Apple devices, Apple iOS is supported for collections. When it comes to ingesting the data, if you've used another tool to image a Mac OS, FTK will ingest that data. So we can ingest Mac OS image files.
Okay, we have still 2 minutes. The last question, can we export a file list report from FTK online version?
Yeah, so if you mean the Smart View version, absolutely. So in the file list view, there is an option where you right click to export as a CSV, and that will allow you to export everything that you can see in the grid view as a spreadsheet with as much or as little detail as you've selected.
Okay, thank you much, Christine. I will just share my screen to highlight some points related to our events and our next events with Exterro team in the region. Just a second, give me a second. So I highly recommend the attendees to visit our homepage and we have planned to join the ISS and the World Police Summit in Dubai. So, sorry, I have some technical issues. Share screen. I hope everyone can see my screen. So if you go here to
Yes.
events to see our homepage, so you can see here, we will join the World Police Summit. Here are the dates, the informations related to the next events. So highly recommended to visit the World Police Summit in Dubai and the ISS as well. We have an event in September in Germany called FT Day. It's a very famous event. It will be hosted in the HQ. And here is the homepage where you can register and see the agenda, see the details. So here is the agenda already published, the details about the hotels, the location, and the arrivals. So I highly recommend also to register and visit our HQ. There is a lot of sessions. Exterro will be there as well, and a lot of sessions related to forensics across 2 days. So it's a huge party. Everyone is welcome from the end users. They can register, they can visit our HQ. I think that's it from my side. I would like to thank you everyone again. Christine, Benish, our team, Suzanne, and our end customers for joining today. And thank you so much. We will share the link for the recording after the webinar directly with everyone. Have a good day.